Let's Get To presents Go Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
And welcome to Go Go Astros. First of all, this is going to be the episode that our friend Don Gillingham, who's not necessarily a listener of this show, but will definitely be fired up about. We're back. We've got Andy. We've got Brian. Gentlemen, we had a little break. Brian went to Disney World. How's everybody doing?
I am tan, relaxed, and ready.
I mean, I don't know that I can top that. I'm now imagining Brian with a tan. So
yeah. Was this your first Disney World experience? Because I've never been.
I still don't know how that's possible, by the way.
I've been to Disneyland once, never Disney World. Brian, was this your first time?
So I'd gone when I was like 6, but my wife and now my kid is a big fan. So we went a couple years ago. This was actually the third attempt on this trip. Got canceled twice due to the pandemic. So
Thanks,
finally got it in. We're very happy.
Yeah, thanks, COVID. At least we can't blame COVID on why we're having another Astros Italian meal conversation. But before we do that, I don't think there's any reason to touch on the lockout right now. Not enough progress, I think, has been made. But we do have a couple of interesting Astros notes. And I think, first of all, Sara Goodrum has been named the director of player development, I believe, for the Houston Astros. I don't know. I just think it's really cool that we're starting to see, we had the Rachel Balkovic news managing a New York Yankee farm club not long ago. It's kind of cool to see women kind of moving forward in the game.
Yeah, and Rachel was former Astro staff, also minor league staff. So, this isn't our first foray into DEI initiatives when it comes to management and coaching. It's interesting. She's a softball player, played D1, I think, at Oregon. And has worked University of Utah, a couple college stops, and then most recently has been with the Brewers as a roving hitting instructor and then in scouting and development. So it's going to be, I think, an interesting and welcome addition, especially when you consider what the front office and what the development staff looked like when Jeff Luhnow was in charge of it and the makeup of that staff. This is somebody who probably would not get that opportunity the way it had been constructed prior to 2019.
Brian, thoughts?
Yeah, 2 thoughts here. One is I'm pretty sure half the talent at evaluating baseball in the world is on the Y chromosome at birth. And, so teams that figure out how to, some of that doesn't get developed because they're from, not parts of the world that play baseball, and some because they get interested in other stuff. But teams that, franchises that take advantage of that fact and are able to bring in, to basically fish from a bigger pool to get people into front office jobs and player development jobs and jobs that can help players seem to have an advantage. Obviously, that's, a 30,000 foot perspective on that. And obviously, there are lots of specifics and details to sort of work through to get that, including potential barriers players might have on being told what to do by someone from the other gender. And, that's something that has to be sort of worked through. But I think something that is less of a deal today than it was, for our contemporaries and certainly for, our parents or grandparents' contemporaries. And the second point sort of worth making here, and this is something broader, the Astros also hired, in addition to Sara Goodrum, they also hired 2 other assistant general managers. We've talked about this a little bit more, but we're starting to get something of a James Click stamp on this team. It is, something that is, this is the first time in a while the Astros have brought in people from outside the organization. And a lot of the front office people they've had, particularly through the Luhnow years, of people who have been developed inside the organization have got promoted through inside the organization. They're still doing that. I think there were 6 other promotions in that same press release that announced the hirings of Goodrum and Andrew Ball. But it also sort of speaks to, it's going to be a little bit different what a James Click franchise is than what a Jeff Luhnow franchise was.
And I think it makes sense. I think it's time. Sometimes you need to kind of replant a different crop. You don't want the ground to get. Look at that, me making an A&M style reference. Andy, like that?
This is like 2 today. Cutting your Twitter post. That must be painful for you.
No, You think it is, but it isn't. The other kind of thing that got dropped on Twitter, and I don't know if this is desperation. I don't know if this is they don't have a place for him. I don't know if this is they're counting on Corey Lee's promotion later on, but baby Correa cross training at catcher. Andy, random.
I don't know that it's random. And I'm parsing this on the fact that I read the Astros original scouting report on Jeff Bagwell last night before he was part of the franchise, which is just, but I don't know how that guy had a job. If you read that, doesn't know how to run bases, didn't demonstrate any leadership, had some power potential, but wasn't going to be an average hitter. I mean, just that scouts. And I know we talk about Moneyball a little bit too much, but there's the analytics side is certainly welcome in today's baseball game.
Yeah.
Anyway, with JC, I think that a minor leaguer with flexibility only gives them more opportunities to do things where there's holes in the franchise or other franchises. Major League Baseball is always going to have a shortage of quality catchers and a shortage of quality backup catchers. So putting another tool in his tool belt, so to speak, I don't think it's a bad thing for either him or the franchise. If it enables him to move up a level, and what is he by trade? A second baseman? Is that accurate?
He couldn't even crack shortstop in his own family, huh?
Well, but so maybe he's blocked at second base for the foreseeable future by a future Hall of Famer in the organization. He's likely not blocked from moving up levels as a catcher. And it also gives you roster flexibility. Back when we had Good Marwin, not that version that we got this year, but Good Marwin, who was cheating. He was a guy that played with us 7 of the 9 on-field positions at some point. I don't think he ever caught for us, and he never pitched for us. He checked the pitching box at some point, but that's how you can build a 26-man roster that's active and have a lot of flexibility and be able to carry more pitchers or more outfielders or whatever, because you've got a guy that can fill in a lot of different slots. So I think it's only a positive. Is he a marginal major league candidate overall? Probably. Was he signed because we had his brother in the roster and we're trying to keep him happy? Probably. But I don't think anything like that, anything that you put another tool for a minor leaguer to develop their career and give them the opportunity is always a positive thing in my mind.
Brian, is it an indicator, though, that he isn't necessarily major league quality? I just think about when they moved Biggio out of catcher. I know that's a completely apples and oranges situation, but it seems like if he's a great athlete, you don't put him in a place where he's going to degrade physically quicker.
Yeah, but again, he's never been a top prospect or a top draft pick. So he's someone that they're trying to figure, is there anything we can do to if we just get him to the majors and get him Garrett Stubbs' career, that's a success for us.
Okay.
He's drafted below Garrett Stubbs. And I guess the parallel, the other guy I was thinking of more recently is Padres catcher Austin Nola, who was a shortstop and a great defensive shortstop in college at LSU. He actually forced DJ LeMahieu off second base. That LSU team was pretty good. They won the national championship. But he's now converted to a catcher sometime in his mid to late 20s and has been a very effective catcher. So, maybe that's the ridiculous upside path for JC Correa here. But, I'm kind of with Andy here. It can't hurt. It's worth sort of noting, though, that the Astros have really improved their catching depth in the minors over the last couple of years. They got Corey Lee was their first round draft pick, and the analysis at that time, he's a reach. He shouldn't be drafted so high, and he's on top 100 list. He's justified that pick. He's the last first round pick of
raked in the fall league. I mean,
Yeah. And there's every expectation he'll replace Martin Maldonado as a starting catcher over the next year or two. Secondly, we have Yanier Diaz, who was another part of the Miles Straw for Phil Maton trade. And he's someone who had a really good year both in the Guardian system and in the Astro system after he came over to the trade deadline, and is a
God, that sounded weird,
prospect.
right, Andy? The Guardian system.
I don't know. It wasn't that one of the gangs from the Warriors.
I think sorry, Brian. It just I was like, what's he? Is Brian having a stroke? Who are the Guardians? Oh, right. Okay. Sorry, Brian. I cut you off.
I had to mentally work really hard to say it that
I
way.
bet,
So,
I bet.
we're all getting used to this here. They've only been the Indians for over, for 120 years. So, it does take a little while to get used to the new one.
It's better than Washington football team by any stretch.
By any stretch, you're true.
Good Lord,
right.
yes. And they're apparently going to be the Commanders because apparently,
Which is just as bad.
I mean, they had plenty of names that seemed to be. I love Red Hogs because, well, I'm a former offensive lineman of the 80s, and
Oh, Red
anyway.
Hogs would have been genius. Like, I don't understand how they whiffed on that. I don't.
They also had Red Tails, which were the Tuskegee Airmen's
That's the
nickname.
one I would have liked.
Yeah, either one of those are really cool, and they go with the most boring one because, well, when you put Dan Snyder in charge of things.
Well,
You start
anyway,
wondering if maybe you should have Cal McNair in charge instead, which is really neither is of interest. I
We
got off
cover
topic
so
here.
many things on this show.
yeah, this is
Well, and that gets me to point 3 here. The reason we're talking about a position conversion for minor leaguers is we have no Major League Baseball to talk about right now. Hopefully, again, they've actually started talking to each other, and yesterday they were yelling at each other a lot. So that's actually a positive sign, as weird as that is to say.
I think it is, but
they're going to talk again today, the day we're recording this. So it literally is 2 days in a row they're going to talk.
yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the leaks of the false and ridiculous statements that the Rockies owner makes again. So this is
How did he get in charge? Anyway, that's a conversation for a whole other day. Andy, you have prepared something fun for us, a little bit of background. When we were trying to figure out ways to keep when this was a segment on Let's Get To, you came up with the idea of we do a Italian food menu based on Astros players, and it ended up being one of our most popular segments. Now Go Go Astros is its own. Yeah. No, it was popular. So now we've got now Go Go Astros is its own show, and I thought, here we are again. This might be the last time we have to do this in the life of the show, hopefully.
Sure hope so.
So Andy, what are we doing?
I mean, this is really difficult too, because this is almost now a, hey, be funny. And it's really difficult to be funny when people tell you to be funny. So just go ahead and assume that it's not going to be. And if you're pleasantly surprised, congrats. So in the winter of 2020, spring, when COVID became a real thing, we realized we were going to lose games. We decided to create a menu of Italian dishes that were named after Astros players of Italian heritage. And by Italian heritage, I really just mean names that sounded vaguely Italian to me at the time I was writing it. And so this stretched a lot of different players, really popular players like Craig Biggio, which was a medley of sunflower seeds, cheese, and pine tar. It was a heavy appetizer. Biggio contained a larger amount of cheese than you'd expect, and it was surprisingly long-lasting for an appetizer. It's served with a delicious focaccia, as well as a book of baseball quotes for clubhouse lawyers. So there's a lot in there. There's a lot to digest. It could be as simple as a Casey Candel, which was just your aperitivo, which was a small bag of salty nuts, and you'll wonder why it wasn't around longer once you're done. We covered the Mike Mignante, which was a weak noodle dish served with a bland marinara. It was a favorite with base runners everywhere. The dish did not come out fast, but it was served from the left-hand side, which kept it on the menu for a really, really long time. So there's a few of those. I know one that Brian had expressed interest in was the Del Barra. Dale Barra's dish is a thin serving of fresh vegetables dressed in a red wine vinaigrette. It was served as an enchilada, of course. Despite the fact that the vegetables come from one of the best farms in the history of the country, ultimately there just wasn't a lot to it. And very likely you'll forget you ever even ate it.
Which is rare for Italian food.
Top seller on the menu. So in this time, we've added a few more. And there are some other things we didn't mention, but we've added a few more to the menu, because you can't just have 7 dishes or 8 dishes on a menu. You've got to have variety for people.
Absolutely.
And tastes change over time. We introduced since 2020 the Mark Loretta, which is a delicious clam toast with pancetta. It's a shellfish and pork duo, which is a power duo, but that salty sweet pancetta soffritto is the backbone of the dish. Our executive chef, actually, is this funny story. Our executive chef actually found the dish traveling in the wilderness of urban Wisconsin. And it was a huge success as soon as we put it on the menu. And it was so successful, we couldn't afford to keep it on the menu. But then we brought it back like 5 years later, and it was kind of meh.
By then it was like the avocado toast of.
Absolutely. It was well overplayed.
I just want to say this, that putting together pork and shellfish, I believe Alex Bregman, the greatest Jewish player in Astros history, would describe that as sacrilegious.
I think he would say it was sack-delicious.
He might. That's what we need. We need Jess for our all Astros Jewish Hanukkah menu. We'll work on that.
We also this year at beginning of last year introduced the Jayco to Rizzi. It sounds better than it is. It's just a chicken breast. You can get it anywhere. Nothing really different that you'd find at any other restaurant. It fills you up, but it's just kind of a chicken breast. And it was really, we introduced it because of a supply chain issue we thought we were going to have, and we felt compelled that we needed to add this dish to the menu. And it turns out we rushed it. It was really undercooked, and it took a really long time to get it right. And once we got it right, it was so spicy that nobody wanted to listen to it anymore. The supply chain issues never materialized either, so we're all kind of just stuck with this chicken for another year.
Chicken thing. And sometimes it was really good, and sometimes you're like, oh my god, that's a savory piece of chicken, and then sometimes you were like, oh, I feel like I'm gonna have food poisoning.
But ultimately a chicken breast is just a chicken breast.
I mean, the thing about the Jayco to Rizzi, I've tried it, and the first time the first bite is really good, the second bite is really good, third time through the chicken, avoid that.
It's
a challenge.
I like how my reaction is gonna be me falling out of my chair. Brian, that was good. That was quick too. That was. You've got a rapier wit, my friend. I love it.
Thank you.
We have another permanent edition, the Jeff Bagwell, and you might question the heritage on that, but the dish hails from Boston, was refined in Connecticut, so we can pretty much guarantee there was some Dago family influence somewhere in the lineage there. It's a squab roasted over high heat, served vertically with its little legs spread wide, with a side of gnocchi. Whole thing's covered in a delicious basil pesto. For texture, though, because of the mouthfeel, you serve it with large pistachios, like really large pistachios, like the biggest nuts you've ever seen. Our signature twist, though, to make it our own dish, is we remove one of the wings at the shoulder, but serve it like it's still a full bird and never talk about it. People love it.
All right. Oh, he lost his arm. He really couldn't play in the World Series. It was sad.
Let's make fun of him.
Yeah, I think he'd appreciate it.
Having trouble staying awake? Maybe you want to try a Jeff Fulcino.
Okay.
It's delicious. Whole milk. There's not a lot to it. Just, and we did have one special right now that I needed to talk about. It's probably the last part of this bit, thankfully for all of us. It's the Rob Manfred. It's the take on our it's our take on a pasta chisardi. It's a pasta dish with fennel, a hint of saffron, raisins, and sardines. The pasta chisardi is known as the least appetizing Italian dish ever made. It doesn't pair with like 27 of the 30 different wines we offer. And frankly, it's really difficult to stomach. The weird thing is that when you order it, people are going to tell you how great it is and how smart it is. But while you're trying to get it down your mouth, down your stomach, it's you're going to be pretty sure it's ruining your childhood, and it's probably putting a boot of your car out in the parking lot.
That most sums up Rob Manfred. He's ruining your childhood by putting a boot on your car in the park. I don't even know how to wrap that up. Andy, that was well done. Not just well done, but well done. See? I got
Those jokes like that. Some say they're medium, some say they're rare. I say they're both.
That's very good. Andy, that was awesome. All right, guys, let's going to wrap us up for this episode. That was a lot of fun. We're going to keep trying to keep it fun and light. Obviously, we're going to stay as on top of Astros news, and we'll, of course, talk about the Sugarland rebrand next episode. But, guys, thanks for jumping on. We'll see y'all next week. Go Stros.
Go Stros.
Go Stros.